A lot of flack for this, but I believe that if you are really poor, you should not be having kids. You should not be having children because it's not just affecting you, you're affecting another living being.
Hey everybody, it's Hope K. Welcome back to my channel. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who watches my videos and is subscribed to me, and those who share my videos as well. I've been watching those shares go up, and yo, I'm in awe of you. Today's video, I just want to say I apologize in advance because the video where everybody is stitching from was deleted. I guess the person got ran out of TikTok because of making such a controversial topic. I searched high and low and I could not find it, but I thought the conversation was worth having, so I've just stitched it anyway. As always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into it.
I remember this was a topic on Twitter a while ago, and a lot of people were upset by it and saying this is eugenics, people should still be able to have kids even if they're dirt poor. And no, they shouldn't, because children are not dolls. Children are not toys. You don't just get one just because you want one. If you don't have the means to take care of a child, why are you having kids? Literally, it's not even eugenics, it's just common fucking sense. Being a parent comes with requirements, and one of those requirements is being financially stable. You don't have to be a millionaire, but you should have enough money to feed your child every single day and clothe them and not have them living a life of struggle. I don't think that's asking for a lot. And let's put the money aside real quick. I still feel like a lot of y'all should not be having kids because you are incompetent. A lot of y'all are emotionally inept. You can't even regulate your own emotion. You result to beating a child when they make mistakes, and you spiral over the smallest things. You don't have what it takes. You don't have the patience, the skill that it takes to be a parent. And a lot of y'all just are not self-aware of that. You think the only reason you need to have a child is simply because you want one. You're not willing to do anything else it takes to prepare you for that child, emotionally, financially, physically. You're not willing to do anything else. Having a child is inherently selfish, so I feel like being financially stable is the bare minimum thing that you can do to ensure that this child has a decent life. Why is this even controversial? And the last thing I want to mention is children who grew up in poverty will tell y'all that you should wait until you're financially stable to have kids. But y'all don't want to listen. You just want to have a little doll that you can play dress up with.
You are not the first person to make this pathetically shallow analysis of the issue and then offer as a solution eugenics. Yes, because forcing anyone, regardless of their socioeconomic status, to not have kids is in fact eugenics, which you'd know if you had any sort of historical context on the topic that you're speaking so confidently about. This is not simply or even mostly the product of poor individual decision-making. It is the product of a host of systemic issues. And most of these systemic issues have solutions. We have decades of data. We know how to deal with the issues that affect impoverished people. But unfortunately, that's not good for business. Not to mention the religious zealots fighting tooth and nail to keep sex education out of public schools.
So this is something that was like floating around on Twitter, I feel like 6 months ago, when people were saying like, oh, I'm not gonna have kids because like I can't afford it, and like poor people really shouldn't be having kids if they can't put food on the table. And a lot of people were calling that eugenics, and I really want to like genuinely explain what eugenics is, because this is not eugenics, and honestly boiling this down to eugenics is really not a good look. I also want to say that for a generation that was raised on the internet, y'all forget about the power of fucking Google all the time. So I'll show you guys. This is the definition of eugenics: the study of how to arrange reproduction within a human population to increase the occurrence of heritable characteristics regarded as desirable. Eugenics was what was at play during the Holocaust. It's trying to breed out or breed in certain characteristics into a population, and it's not having kids because you're poor.
You currently under the impression that poor people shouldn't have kids? Do you live a life where you're constantly thrown into rage that people suffering under poverty would ever subject a child to those conditions? Boy, is today your lucky day. My name is Isma to Gwendolyn, and I would like to interest you in an upgraded politic. Grab your tea, I'm having pistachio. Why is your politic in need of a little bit of an upgrade? Well, as it stands right now, poor people shouldn't have kids is only good for moral judgment. It does nothing to address the causes or the symptoms of poverty, does nothing to dismantle the maintenance of poverty, and it does nothing to make children less inevitable. Children are inevitable. So long as poverty exists, children under poverty will exist. Point blank. Poverty, in fact, is not inevitable. It is a very solvable problem. I believe that poverty worldwide can be solved in this lifetime. How, you might ask? By organizing or supporting campaigns that lead the impoverished to be able to provide for themselves. Oh my God, I have one for you today. Amazing. It's called Feed My Hungry Family, Inklay and I Obey, and it is my literal family. That's not a misnomer. Like, please donate. I'm gonna be running a little dude from across the street, let me hold $1 campaign until I get this money raised, because I need to buy my family a tractor, 2 combination rice harvesters, and chainsaws so that we can make desks for kids in school. I am a poor Sierra Leonean Black American who grew up in poverty in the United States from 2 parents that grew up in poverty in Sierra Leone, and I'm trying to solve generational problems for us. And a lot of people on the internet feel very strongly that poor kids don't deserve to suffer. You're damn right. The issue is you don't age into deserving poverty. Nobody deserves it. And when adults don't have to worry about poverty, children don't. Fix the whole thing. If you had the extra 30 seconds in your day to type a mean comment to me and call me any kind of name under the sun, you absolutely can donate $1 to this. In fact, I'm gonna be tagging y'all since y'all care so much. If you do not have a politic that compels you to action, your politic is useless. Dead on arrival, I'm gonna need you to do better than that. Baby, let me upgrade. Donate. Have a good one.
I'm sorry, but I completely agree with this. Like, that is so selfish and just not smart to do. Like, why do you want to put that kid through that? Not be able to provide for them, struggle. All of you will fucking struggle. Especially, like, what if something happens to either of you or whatever, and now you're raising that kid by yourself and you're both struggling. Like, why can't you wait until you have like the means to do it? And I think a lot of you don't even know the answer to that. You don't even know why you want to have kids. It's ingrained in your brain that that's what you're supposed to do. So by any means necessary, you need to find someone to settle down with and have kids. The whole American dream is find a husband, find a wife, whatever, get married, have kids, buy a house, which in this day and age, that's not going to happen. You're not going to fucking be able to do that shit right now, especially just how times are right now. If you're in your 20s and you're having a kid, I'm sorry, but you're selfish as there's no reason for that. You were not ready. You do not have the money. I promise. I don't care who you are. Unless you're rich or have rich parents, you do not have the money to do that. They've even raised the price. The age for people who are buying houses right now is 50. When it used to be 25, people are now only being able to buy houses at 50 years old. And y'all are telling me you just want to bring a kid into your like 2-bedroom apartment? Why? You're not there yet. What's the rush? Why are you rushing so much? I know why, but you can't even ask yourself why you're doing that. It's because you fucking think you're supposed to. But who told you that? Who told you that? Where did you get that idea from? Like, it's all connected. If you're too busy finding a husband, finding a wife, and having kids, guess what you're not doing? Paying attention. You're not paying attention to the world because you can't. All the dots are there, but you guys are not able to fucking connect them.
Every 3 business months, you guys get on here and have this same garbage take. And the people who post the videos and all the people in the comments want a round of applause and a cookie for saying poor people shouldn't have kids. But they are. So now what? Like, what are we actually doing about the problem? Like, do you actually care that poor people are having kids? Or do you just want to get on here and make a little TikTok video, get all your views and your engagements, and then what? Like, it's so annoying. Because you all do the same thing every 3 months. We have this same conversation every 3 months.
I made a video about this last year and it was my first viral video. I focused on the point that back in the days, poor people tend to have a lot of kids versus rich people. And I was explaining how my history teacher told me there was a variety of reasons for that. But one of the most important one was the lack of education and the lack of knowledge and preparation for children. And so I was reiterating that now, today in 2023, 2022, we have more than enough resources, and I mean education. We have more than enough understanding to know the needs of a child, to know what a child will take, or at least what it would take to raise a child, especially with inflation. And most of us, even if we're making more money than we ever had in our lives, we're still living paycheck by paycheck. And majority of people resonated with my idea. But then there was another cluster of people that were crazy. Like, I had comments telling me, oh, you wouldn't know because you're not a mom. Love is what's required to raise a child. Ma'am, love is not going to feed your child. Love is not going to pay for your child's schooling. They were like, oh, you don't get it. You'll never be ready for a child. Perhaps not mentally and emotionally, but financially I should be. And it's such a selfish act for people to have a child knowing that they cannot take care of said kid. Like, children should not know what it feels to have no roof over their head, what it feels like to be sick with no treatment, what it feels like to be hungry with no food. And it's not a perfect world. Obviously, we have different circumstances that could lead to somebody being pregnant and having the child. But I'm saying, if we have control over the situation, if you're not financially ready and committed to have a child, you should not have one. Like, this is a person. You're playing with somebody's life.
If you don't understand why this view is problematic, I'm going to break it down for you as quickly as I can. Rich people get rich by exploiting the working class. They take the surplus value that's generated by their labor and they appropriate it to their own purposes and wants and needs. This necessitates the existence of a group called the Reserve Army of Labor. It's a fancy way of saying a bunch of poor people who have to work because they're poor so that they can keep generating value for the people who make the money. Arguing that the people who are being exploited should not engage in one of the fundamental elements of life on this planet, like continuing the existence of our fucking species, because someone else was greedy, we do not punch down. Christ.
This is a very conservative, potentially very racist standpoint, and I stand by it 100%. Let me explain why. You can argue that this standpoint is eugenics, and you're probably right, but listen. Children are not political pawns. They are not a resource to further our culture or our people group. They are fucking people being born without their consent and with zero ability to take care of themselves. A lot of y'all are having kids because you not only want to create a child that looks like you so that you can take care of your inner child in a way that actually does not require creating a new human being, but because you want the unconditional love that a child gives a parent that you didn't receive from your own parent. And how you define that unconditional love usually means unconditional obedience, unconditional conformity to the norms that you've laid out, usually unspokenly, for your child. And I haven't even mentioned not being financially able to take care of your kid yet. So not only is this human being who hasn't even developed critical thinking skills yet expected by you to take care of you emotionally, they're expected to thank you for being born into a life of poverty. If you cannot feed, clothe, house, and adequately educate your child, do not have your child. Don't do it. I work every day with children who are unhoused, who do not have homes, who are fed primarily through the school, and their parents keep having children, and it does not make any sense to me. I'm calling DCFS because these children are being abused in every manner possible, and their parents keep having children. Are there systemic reasons why these people are living in poverty? Why these people do not have the emotional regulation skills to be able to care for their kids? Of course there are. But how the fuck are we solving that by continuing generational trauma? We're not. The core issue here is childism. It is the ongoing idea that children are not people, they are property of their parents. And the truth of the matter is, if they weren't so fucking cute, a lot of us wouldn't care about kids at all. And this isn't even touching on the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of kids without parents already, just spread across the face of the earth, that we don't even consider when we talk about having children.
I'm 25 years old, and I'm always constantly getting asked, when are you having kids? Baby, kids? And this economy? Do you know how selfish it is to have children when you don't even have your life together? When you don't know if you'll be able to pay rent for next month? When you are not sure where your next meal is coming from? When you have to choose between the light bill or the water bill for the month? I'm currently working on myself and my financial security, so when the day comes that I do have children, they don't have to struggle. They don't have to go hungry. They don't have to live in a house where the lights are getting cut off. They don't have to go to bed cold. They can go to the best schools, wear the best clothes, eat the best meals, take the best vacations. I am not bringing children into this world to struggle. I will use any method of protection and birth control that is available to me because I am not financially ready to have a child yet. Yes, I am mentally ready to have a child. And yeah, of course, I want children. I'm 25, I'm almost 26. I am ready to have a kid. But let's be honest, I'm poor, and you cannot have a child being poor. I don't want to bring a child into this world and live in this neighborhood that I live in, where people rob and steal and shoot each other and kill each other. Say what you want, but my children will have a silver spoon. My children will have everything handed to them. My children will have access to anything they want. My children won't have to struggle. And if you know you're poor and you bring children into this world, you're selfish. There are condoms, there are pills, there are shots, and you still choose to get pregnant, you're selfish. I don't care.
I'm convinced that anybody who doesn't agree with this either doesn't have a kid or they're getting a lot of help, because we pay about $15,000 a year in daycare alone. That's just the basic package where I'm at. That's the basic package. And that's not even including food, clothes, basic necessities, none of that. Now, some parents, one will stop working to cut this cost, but now you just lost the income. Others will switch their careers and do a work from home job, but now you're losing your mind, because now you a work from home, stay at home parent. No, thank you. And then others like myself will have to go back to work, and now you're losing out time with your kid and family. Like, it's really a lose-lose. And I even had the audacity to bring the idea up to have another kid to my man, and he almost checked me into a mental institution because, girl, what? And honestly, the sacrifices that some of us have to make to be good parents and raise a human being, I don't think it's talked about enough. I think people see the family photo ops and the IG stories, little cute ass babies with their baby rolls. I think it confuses some people. I was one of those people. I mean, some of y'all out here making parenthood look like cake, but being a parent, it ain't no damn hoe. It will humble you so quick.
Okay, let me critically think for y'all, since y'all refuse to do it. Since y'all are so hinged on spreading YouTube supremacy in the name of quote unquote common sense, right? How do we enforce this? Because the extreme example has already happened, and it's called sterilization. It is already happening and has already happened to marginalized people. That is how you prevent poor people from having kids. So what is the metric for poverty? Because if we look at poverty statistically, most people in America are poor. Most people in America cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment on their pay. So that would mean most people in America should not have kids. Who is poor? Disabled people, Black people, people of color. These are the people that are statistically poor under these systems. If we say that poor people should not have kids, we are saying that people who are more likely to be poor should not have kids. Who are those people? Look at who is poor, and then look at who you are saying should not have kids, and then look at how this is eugenics. Look at how this is white supremacy to say people who are poor, which is most likely Black, queer, disabled people, these people should not have kids. And y'all are not looking out for poor children. These poor children already exist, and they will exist unless you plan on sterilizing poor people. You create a system where marginalized people are poor, you blame them for their poverty, and then you insist they should not have any kids. And then you have effectively removed that group of people from the planet.
So this one was a tough subject, I'm not gonna lie. At first it sounded so clear-cut, but the more I watched those videos and I did my own personal research, the harder and a little bit more complex it got. The first point was that it's not eugenics, but isn't it though? I mean, if the powers that be make it so that others cannot make enough money to live on in the first place, and then in turn those people are driven to forfeit having kids, then isn't that sterilizing them indirectly? Like, this has to be eugenics adjacent. Like, it's little cousin, it's ugly little friend. I don't know, something, because it's not making sense to me. Like, I know wealthy people, when they don't feel ready to have kids for whatever reason, they're able to freeze their eggs. But poor people can't do that. They can't afford for their eggs to be frozen. And even if they are frozen, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to have kids eventually. Because what if they don't get out of poverty? What if they do and then they have kids and they jump back into poverty because life lifed? There is no clear set of instructions on this earth, and things happen that are beyond our control all the time. So what do we do with the kids that we already have? What do we do with the kids that are born after we've done everything in our power for us to not be in poverty? Maybe that's a different conversation altogether. Fair enough, maybe. But I feel like this whole thing creates more questions than it does solutions. So it's definitely a conversation still worth having. The other thing for me is, how far are we going with this? So let's say as a collective, we've decided that, yeah, poor people don't give the best quality of life to kids because of their financial situation. So therefore, they should no longer have any kids moving forward. Okay, fine, cool. They're not having kids anymore. What about, I'm sorry because I don't know the politically correct terminology here, but what about less abled people, disabled people? What about those guys? Do they get to provide a better lifestyle for kids than poor people? I don't know. What about sick people? And then there's also subcategories in that sickness, because there's those people who were always sick and had kids while they were actively ill. And then there are those people who got sick, people in car accidents that no longer have limbs. What do? Do we take away their kids? People with mental health issues. What happens with them? Do they not get a clean bill of health for having kids? What if they're on medication and their medication is working? Do they then get to have kids? And what if they stop taking their medication? Because they can do that. Then when they're off their medication, then we take their kids away. And if we do take their kids away, where do they go? Because there's already a whole bunch of kids that we can't take care of, or we choose not to take care of. I kind of agree that it seems a little bit half-baked. I think most of us do understand why it is detrimental, why it may be detrimental for people who are not financially stable to have kids. But at the same time, I think we're missing something else in this conversation. What are we going to do systematically to make sure that we are dealing properly with everybody who is around and then catering to those who are going to come? What can we do now to raise the quality of life for these people so that they can also have good, enjoyable life, as opposed to just taking away their freedoms completely? And don't get me wrong, I do understand why you might want to take away their freedoms, but it's a slippery slope. Like I said, who else are we going to do that with? And also, when we take away kids, or when we tell disabled people that they can't have kids, or queer people can't have kids, poor people can't have kids, are we then giving a clean bill of health for wealthy parents who abuse their kids? Or do they have a right to have their kids? I genuinely am interested to know what you guys think, because I didn't come here to give like a proper good conclusion, because I'm genuinely stuck, because I do realize that there's a problem. I just don't know how we're supposed to fix this realistically, because if the powers that be don't do anything and we feel like we can't make the changes, then what genuinely what is going to happen? So I'm just going to leave it there and ask you guys to help me out. What do you guys think? Should we let poor people have kids, or should we not? And what are your reasons for that? And also, if you grew up poor, do you feel like you're better off not having existed, or are you okay? So yeah, over to you. Let me know. As always, like, comment, subscribe, be nice to each other in the comment section, because sometimes I see you guys and you are mean to each other. You are nice to the people who agree with you, and then you're horrible to the others. Be kind, because we are different and we're trying to learn from each other, and just being nasty doesn't help. Stay tuned for the next video. Also, you guys let me know what kind of videos you want to see next. That will be very helpful. As always, stay safe out there. Until next time, cheerio.
So last week, offhandedly, I shared a random historical fact on accident. I did not mean to post that video, and people seem to really like it and have asked for more. So I'm going to just do this until people tell me to stop. And today we're going to talk about, in honor of Black History Month, the eugenics movement. So what does that mean? What is eugenics? I legitimately did not know until I started teaching it, and I was baffled that I had never learned this in a classroom. So in the late early 1900s, this widespread scientific movement called eugenics takes over in the United States. It has now been debunked. It is considered a pseudoscience, but at the time it was pretty mainstream. And eugenicists believed that the human being could be perfected through selective breeding. Now, Gregor Mendel came out with this idea of genetics, but that talks about inherited traits, eye color, hair color. And eugenicists believed that they could perfect the human through more abstract qualities, such as intelligence and social behaviors. Now, the idea of this was that they mostly wanted to weed out people that they saw unfit and undesirable from reproducing in our country. And that typically fell on the shoulders of minorities in the United States, specifically indigenous people, immigrants, and African Americans. Now, what does this look like? Because of its widespread just acceptance in the United States, we begin to see marriage laws with interracial marriages no longer being allowed. We begin to see more strict immigration laws, especially against Asian people. And we also begin to see the laws being passed about forced sterilization that mostly affected indigenous women, women of color, and people who had mental disabilities. In fact, there are stories about over 100,000 women who were sterilized without their consent in the United States. Now, eugenicists were basically cherry picking all the parts that they liked from the theory of evolution and Gregor Mendel's theory of genetics and trying to make it fit with this line about racial superiority that came about after the slave trade and imperialism. Quickly in the 1930s, though, it becomes more fringe, less mainstream, and funding and stuff goes away from it. But the precedent and the idea had been set in the United States. At the same time, there is a group in Europe who gets a hold of what the United States is doing and is intrigued by these laws and these policies that they are enacting. And they also begin to enact marriage laws and immigration policies and even forced sterilizations. Except in their case, they kicked it up to about 1 million and did it on a very large, very grand scale, way more than the United States ever did. And that group in Europe was known as the Nazi Party under the rule of Adolf Hitler.